Hi, Robin Miles here, and today I'm going to be going through the most effective way of preparing for and conducting a interview. So lots of us have to go to interviews and we've learned different techniques of kind of doing it. This one is based on some of those other kind of structured ways of responding to interview questions, but I've added some kind of uniqueness to it, which makes it flow very naturally. But it's based on some of the principles of how we subconsciously or consciously get into people's subconscious about building credibility with them and demonstrating the trust that they need and giving them the information and painting the picture about what it looks like for us turning up and building that credibility. And I'll talk a little bit about it. So the interview template is in the resource center, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through it a little bit to provide some of the background and why some of the stuff's so important. So the first thing is the method acronym is aorta, which is actually the largest artery in the system. So it's about really effectively delivering something, blood. And so the aorta method is exactly the same in the way that it's the most effective way that I've found and had so much success with people who have been really struggling to get a job. Just using this method when they go back, and the consistent feedback is when they go back and check, why did you select me? They said, well, we couldn't find any reason not to. You just gave us the trust and the belief in you to be able to do the role. And so it's the most effective way of delivering that message and having the impact that you want within an interview. So it's a highly effective method of doing it. So basically for each question that you're actually asked, I'll talk about some general tips at the end, but this is the structure of how to respond. So any question about anything that you get given, what's really worthwhile doing is first of all, talking about your general approach to the kind of question that they've asked. So for instance, say they ask you about, I don't know, could be anything, could be about project delivery, could be about inspiring teams, could be about customer service focus, whatever it is that they're asking you about as a requirement of the role or something that they're really looking for. They're asking that specific question, but what's good for you to do is respond with, I've got a general approach for that through my years of experience, and it is that in customer service, I focus on three things. In project delivery, I see it as a 5-stage process. So having a general approach, because you're building credibility straight off the bat that not only have you done this before, you've done this so many times before that you have got a prioritized general approach for dealing with that kind of capability, which is important to them. So in their subconscious, like, wow, this person really knows their stuff, because something that's important to us, which we're asking a question about, they've actually got a standard approach for. So you're building credibility very, very quickly based on anchoring subconscious bias, that we really listen to the first thing that a person says. So for instance, if they ask a question, you say, look, I've got a 3-stage process for this, A, B, and C. They're like, wow, it really hits them. But then the next thing is that you got to back it up. You've got to anchor it with detail. So just give one example. There's probably lots of examples, but just say, look, hey, one example, for instance, of where I used that was in X, Y, or Z in this situation in my previous role. This is the situation we had. This is what we did, etc. Just give one example. And when you say to them, look, let me just give you one example, you're actually inferring that you've got a whole lot of examples, but you're only just giving one, but you're going in specifically to that. You're going really deep now into it. So having the general approach is the general, then you're cutting into it to go to one example about where you've actually done it, which builds that kind of credibility, obviously making sure that it's relevant and tying it. But then that's when you get on to the next phase, which is everything's about results at the end of the day. What outcome was achieved? What result did you actually achieve from the example that you've given? Make sure that you focus on that, because they'll be thinking, oh, that's the kind of result that we want. And so now you're really taking them on this journey of this story. Then the next thing is actually, I reckon these 2 bits are the killer bits to it, that if you can do it concisely. What were your takeaways? So you may have said, look, my general approach to customer service satisfaction is A, B, C. When I was the executive of blah, 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 we had this kind of issue. We put that approach into practice and we did dink, dink, dink. And then we produced this result, or we achieved this kind of outcome and everything else like that. They're thinking, wow, that's pretty successful. But you then go on, look, and my takeaways and learning from that situation is that even though that model really works in that situation, what you've got to be really careful of is this, is this, is this. And they're my takeaways and learnings. Therefore, you're demonstrating that not only do you know your stuff, but you're demonstrating credibility that you're consistently learning, developing, taking things to the next level to finally do the killer thing, which is to say, therefore, my approach for this role or in this role, I see this as being critical and I would make sure that I do boom, boom, boom in coming into this role. You're literally painting a picture for them about how you bring everything into this role for them personally and how you would take the role up. And again, the overwhelming feedback that we get given from people who use this model and go back and check with the people, they say, well, you kind of came in here as the person. And that's the key thing to think about, is that who are you and what do you stand for? What does this role actually need and is asking for? And how are you going to show up and take that role on in a way in which you really want, which is this last kind of phase about how are you going to do the role in a way that's authentic for you? And at the end of the day, if they don't want that, you'll be happy because that's how your integrity about how you would want to do the role. More often than not, people say, absolutely, that's what we want. Just some other tips down here, and it's just to mitigate risk. The first one is actually really to listen to the question, because presence and impact is based on our warmth, about how we connect to people, and our strength, which is our competence to deliver. So warmth, go into warmth, which is to really listen and understand, and if they ask you questions, make sure you're clear with it, because a lot of time they ask like double-barreled questions and these types of things. So be really clear. Okay, so what's the key element that you're wanting to get out of that question? Okay, it's really about that. Okay, great, got it. So clarify and make sure that you're on the same page so that you can concisely respond to it. Second is, after each question, make sure if they want any more information or if what you've explained makes sense to them, etc. So you're incrementally building up almost approval or agreement to their level of satisfaction about your responses. Keep it concise. And so even though there's 5 areas, you can literally answer it in 5 sentences. My general approach is this: I did this in my previous role where this was happening, this was the outcome, this is what I learned, and this is how I would turn up and show up in this role. You can keep it really concise and really short. And then the final killer question I always say to people, when they say, is there anything else any questions for us? One is, that's an opening for you. Say maybe, oh look, I've got a couple of questions, but also I wanted to emphasize anything there. That's your opportunity to emphasize anything that they haven't asked you about that you think is critical about you. So I often speak with people and they say, oh, I never got the opportunity to say X, Y, or Z. And I'm like, did they ask you at the end if you had any questions? Oh yeah, I did. Why didn't you say it then? Because you can say, oh look, I've got a couple of questions, but I'd also just like to emphasize, an area of what I would bring to the role would be around this stuff. You've always got the opportunity, and that's showing your leadership. So make sure that you do that. And then finally, the killer question I always ask is this. I just want to check if there's any responses that I provided where you haven't got what you needed, or where might not have provided you with the confidence that you need. That's a slightly longer version. You make it your own. You can say, look, I just wanted to make sure that in any of the responses, I just want to make sure that I'm giving you the confidence and all the information you need. Is there anything else that you need? And you're literally just asking them, is there anything missing from you having the confidence that I'm the right person for the job, which is an anchoring subconscious bias for them to go, oh, good question, computing with brain, is there anything? No, there's not. You've ticked all the boxes, done. Sometimes, and even for me, I ask this question, the person says, yes, in actual fact. I was like, great. Because then you get the opportunity to respond to it. And then when they really kind of go in their subconscious, go, is there anything? Oh, there is this one thing nagging doubt. You get it out into the open. You can nail it there so that when they go away and make their deliberations, they've got 100% of what they need. Hopefully this makes sense to you. See, I'm doing this now. I'm confirming that it makes sense to you. But use this in preparation. I mean, I've got a little template here for you to use in the resource center, but just literally go approach one example result. What's your takeaway learnings and what's your approach for this role? Just do that as a format in preparation for each of the key requirements of the roles, looking at the role statements, what this role is to achieve, and prepare along those kind of lines, and you'll find it as hugely beneficial, as I know it has been for a lot of my clients. If you've got any queries or questions, feel free to reach out, and good luck, and I know you'll nail it. Cheers guys, bye now.